In 1951, William Frawley was 64 years old, washed up in the eyes of Hollywood, sitting in a dingy Los Angeles diner with a cup of cheap coffee and a cigarette burning, dangerously close to his trembling fingers when he got the call that would resurrect his career. A sitcom pilot with a red-headed firecracker named Lucille Ball. He'd been a bit player, a vaudevillian past his prime, a relic of Hollywood's black and white days, cast out for his drinking, his bitterness, and the constant whisper that he'd crossed every producer in town. But I Love Lucy was different. It was bright new, and so bursting with optimism that even William, with his crumpled suits and hangover headaches, felt a flicker of hope when he stepped onto that shiny soundstage. He'd play Fred Mertz, the grumpy landlord with a soft spot for Lucy's harebrained schemes, but in real life, there was nothing soft about his feelings toward her. From day one, something about Lucy crawled under his skin. The way she rehearsed every line until it was perfect, the way she wielded power like she'd been born to it, the way she could melt an entire audience with a single pratfall while he, the veteran, got the leftover laughs. He'd stand just off camera, arms crossed, eyes narrowed, mumbling to crew members about that red-headed control freak. And Lucy, fresh from radio stardom and desperate to keep her marriage to Desi Arys afloat by turning their real life into television magic, noticed every cutting comment, every muttered jab, and she was not about to let this bitter old man ruin her shot at immortality. Rehearsals became battlegrounds. He'd explode at line changes, accuse her of favoring Desi, snap at young Vivian Vance, the sweet Ethel, to his Fred for forgetting her cues, when in reality she was simply trying to keep the peace. Sometimes William would arrive already half drunk, his breath sour with last night's regrets, and tear the set apart with rage over the smallest notes from Lucy or the directors. He'd grumbled that the studio lights made him sweat like a pig, that the costume department deliberately dressed him in clothes that made him look fatter, and then he'd throw it back at Lucy, ridiculing her own insecurities about her body. "Look at her," he'd snarl to a stagehand within earshot. "Thinks she's America's sweetheart, but she's got the hips of a linebacker." The digs cut deep. Lucy had always struggled with her self-image, and behind her slapstick charm was a woman terrified of growing old, of losing her beauty, of failing Desi, and now this angry fossil made sure she felt it every day. But Lucy was no shrinking violet. She fought back in ways only Lucy could with quiet strategic power. She pulled strings with CBSX to limit Frawley's access to other gigs. She made certain he was barred from visiting the sets of new shows. She quietly helped produce if he wanted more screen time. She'd rewrite scenes so Fred Mertz conveniently left the room. When he insisted on spicy jokes mocking her age or weight, she'd fake laugh in front of the crew, then shred the lines before cameras rolled. By the third season, the feud was an open secret. They couldn't stand to be in the same room, unless the cameras were rolling, and even then, you could catch the edge in Lucy's eyes when Fred Mertz shot her one of his so-called harmless zingers. Crew members learned to walk on eggshells. Desi, always the peacemaker when he wasn't off womanizing or sweet-talking sponsors, tried to broker her truces in the break room with whiskey and cigars. But William wasn't having it. He'd knock back a drink, stub out his cigarette, and mutter, "You can't make me love her, Desi. Not going to happen." And yet, audiences had no idea. Millions tuned in every week, roaring with laughter at the Mertzes, bickering in their tiny TV apartment, never suspecting that behind the sets, the real venom was so much worse. The irony, their on-screen chemistry, that odd couple spark was real because they despised each other. It gave every insult, every exasperated eye roll, a crackle that felt alive. But Lucy knew she couldn't let him keep pushing the line. When rumors swirled that William planned to pitch his own spin-off of Fred Mertz's Variety Hour that would capitalize on the lovable Kerr-machine image without Lucy's oversight, she shut it down before the pilot could get past the backroom stage. She called in Favor's twisted arms, reminded CBS exactly who brought in the ratings. Frawley never forgave her. The final straw came during a network party when he drunkenly cornered her near the buffet, spat venom about how he'd make damn sure you never share my bedroom scenes again. And Lucy, holding her martini like a scepter, looked him dead in the eye, and declared, "You'll be lucky to share my air." True to her word, she ordered every future script to keep Fred and Ethel's bedroom door permanently shut, a sly nod to audiences who'd forever wonder what that sour old man did to make Lucy so determined to keep the fantasy separate from the poison. When the show ended its original run, William found himself a dreef again, reputation stained by whispers of his tirades. His drinking got worse. He'd show up uninvited to other sets, offering his services as a TV legend. But doors slammed quietly. Behind him, Lucy, meanwhile, soared. She launched DeSolu Studios into a powerhouse, pioneering shows like Star Trek and Mission Impossible. She became the first woman to run a major Hollywood studio, while the man who'd mocked her weight, her talent, her dreams, shuffled from gig to gig, bitterly recounting tales of that red-headed devil to any barfly who'd listen. He died in 1966, heart weakened by years of booze and bile. And though the headlines read, "TV's beloved Fred Mertz dies at 79, Lucy didn't send flowers. Desi did out of habit, but Lucy stayed home, stirring her martini, remembering every cruel word, every smirk, every private humiliation. Some said she cried that day, not out of grief, but relief. The ghost of William Frawley still haunts the soundstage where I Love Lucy made history. Ask any old crew member and they'll tell you how sometimes late at night the lights flicker in the fake Mertz apartment, as if Fred himself is pacing the tiny living room muttering about how the queen of comedy beat him at his own cruel game. And maybe that's fitting because behind every laugh track and zany sitcom moment was a woman who refused to let a bitter old man drag her down. Lucy outlasted him, outsmarted him, and ensured that his nastiest revenge, that endless effort to break her spirit, died with him buried under the very stage lights that once made him shine. Subscribe to WHISPR Dust for more emotional stories. Behind music legends and the feuds that shaped rock history, tap the bell to never miss a beat.